Hey, Veronica.
Jon, you
Yeah.
know, I've been having some conversations with some people,
Uh-huh.
and I'm gonna I'm gonna need you to do something for me, and it's
Okay.
very important that you do exactly as I say.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. Sure. What is it?
In the second half of this episode of Box Office Time Machine,
Uh-huh.
you're gonna you're going to say that you think Pulp Fiction is overrated garbage. You will say it. It will not hurt one bit of your credibility or anything to just say it. And when you say it, other people are going to be very happy that you said it.
Veronica, have you been gambling on our podcast?
It's not important, Jon, to know how deep I am in the hole for certain film-based gambling apparati. What is important is that you do exactly as I say. Pulp Fiction, overrated garbage.
All right. Well, Venmo me a stack of money, and sure, I'll take the fall.
Okay, let's proceed as if nothing has happened. Now do your stupid cold open.
Well, we've been recording this the whole time. This is the opening of the episode. All your criminal insider betting and all that. That's actually in the episode now.
What? No, Jon, come on. No. This is something we're doing on the down low.
No,
I mean, low.
We wrote that other episode. It was a whole thing where I had written a script for the intro to the episode, but then I'd written both of us saying the N word a ton of times as if we were Tarantino. But I think this is the better intro. Yeah, let's do the intro where you're a criminal.
Oh, God, Jon. You don't know what kind of shit you got me into.
Are my LA privileges revoked?
LA privileges revoked.
I don't think Big Rapes does jazz hands in that scene, Veronica. He's holding a shotgun.
But in a jazzy way,
right? Toot toot.
Toot toot. I love that our talent is always finding the greatest exit out of a bit.
Well, speaking of talent, we came into that. You said you weren't a good actor. I think that was a remarkable performance.
Okay, yeah. Should we send this to the Academy? I hear the field is wide open this year.
I am uploading the QuickTime video you made straight to Actors Access. Putting that as your sides for all drama performances. And we'll let the casting ring in. Casting one, Veronica Yurovsky.
Yes.
And her scene partner, John Burchad. I was trying to segue into our introductions, but it's awkward. Hi, I'm Jon.
Hi, I'm Veronica. SAG-AFTRA.
And this is Box
Actually
Office
not.
Time
I'm
Machine.
not. I don't know if it's illegal to claim that you are when you're not.
Do you think it's illegal? Like, what would that be?
Oh, I don't know. I know
Fraud?
that
Union
it's illegal
fraud?
to claim you're a U.S. citizen when you're not. Maybe it's illegal to claim that you're a SAG-AFTRA.
Do you think it's like when you pretend to be a soldier? What's that called? Stolen valor.
Stolen valor. Yeah. It's stolen Oscars.
Are you stolen SAG strike valor?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I assume there were people who were just picketing just for fun or like just to be part of it. when that
Oh,
happened.
non-union members who were involved in the
But I don't even mean like aspiring necessarily actors or writers, but rather people who are just like
people who were just bored.
Yeah, no, like hangers on. They want to pretend that they act and or write, but they do neither.
I'm more interested in the people who are bored. I want to know all of our friends who were more involved than I in the WJ and SAG strikes last year. Please let me know if there was anyone who was involved in the strikes, walking on the line, who was just there to get their steps in. That's what I want to know.
Get your steps in, like pretend that you're part of something bigger than you, But yeah. Anyway.
This is the kind of witty, LA-based repartee that one could find in today's movie. But first, I haven't said the title of the show yet. This is Box Office Time Machine, the show where we talk about the number one movie at the box office, either from the current weekend or weekend in the past. Today, we're going 30 years back to talk about Pulp Fiction.
Ding, 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 ding. Hey! I mean, I guess that's sort of appropriate, you not saying the name of the episode or podcast before, for a bunch of time, because that's what Pulp Fiction does.
Yes.
Wow.
We're doing
this was
episode
all planned.
out of chronological order. All of our conversation will circle back on each other. Well, to start circling back, Veronica, what's your history with Pulp Fiction?
Oh boy, John. I mean, I love this movie. I saw this probably in high school for the first time. And I think that same week I watched it twice more. Like, I think I recorded it on VHS off of like some movie channel. And then I watched it again and again. It's so good. It's one of my favorite movies. I love it. I've seen it a ton of times. I was debating whether I need to even rewatch it for this podcast. And I was like, no, I'll do it. But I definitely did not need to. I would say that.
Yeah, I think we can get it out of the way. This is going to be more similar to our Chinatown episode than it is to our Joker Folie à Deux episode. And that we can kind of just get out of the way. Like, yes, this is a incredibly influential, groundbreaking, one could say masterpiece. Certainly one of the most, I would say, arguably, certainly in the top 3 most influential movies released in our lifetime. Do you think that's possible? Does that seem fair?
Yeah, it's that. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1.
I like that movie. You should have chosen a bad Marvel movie to make that joke.
No, I intentionally chose a mediocre Marvel movie.
I think Guardians is top tier Marvel.
Wow. That tells you everything you need to know. All right. Sorry. Yeah, I think so. I think it's definitely one of the more influential movies that, in kind of an interesting way, influenced a bunch of, like, in different directions, I guess. There's kind of the obvious rip-off sort of fast-talking stuff, but there is sort of the chronological stuff. There's also the people have sort of these seemingly not plot-driven conversations, and that's like an entirely different kind of type of movie that I feel like since Pulp Fiction has been allowed to be made. Also, just in terms of casting, the idea that you cast these maybe like cult figures in kind of, I guess, out of character kind of casting choices. I feel like all of that is kind of, even just like using, your own music the director happens to love as like the soundtrack to a movie, I feel like hasn't really been done prior to the extent that this one has. Obviously, there have been movies where the score was songs, but I feel like this one is so wall to wall that it also feels kind of unique.
I mean, there's certainly incredibly successful soundtracks before this. I mean, we did The Big Chill a few months ago on this show.
Of course.
But I think even more like the use of the music in this, going right to the incredibly confident radio station music change in the opening titles. But like for anyone who is younger, this is a incredibly groundbreaking movie that we were alive for, albeit young. I actually rewatched this. My parents were in town, and I rewatched it with them. And my mom was like, "Did you see this in theaters?" And I was like, "No."
I was 6.
I was, I think, 7. But no, I did not.
I was 7.
I hopped in the car. I drove on over to the Cineplex.
This is interesting. Have your parents? I'm kind of curious. Your parents were definitely of age during this movie. Do they have any memories of it?
They were actually not of age. My parents were, people don't know this, my mom was on the first season of Teen Mom, which was actually
wow.
People don't realize that show originated in 1988. But no, my mom had actually never seen it before. My dad was a huge fan. My mom...
Wow.
I was asking her, I'm like, that must have been like an active choice. You must have at some point been like, that doesn't seem good to me. And then like, you would have had to work to be like in America of her age and not have seen this movie. She had to put effort in. Mm-hmm. I think she enjoyed it. But like, for people who are younger and might not realize like how influential this movie was, there was a period of time in the 90s where the only thing being released in theaters was either a Pulp Fiction ripoff, a Scream ripoff, or Disney's Tarzan. Those were the only options. And yes, there was a little emoji that just appeared, but it was only in Zoom, not in the recording. So let's not talk about it because no one will have seen it. I've already talked about it. But yeah. I looked up before we go. I just looked up someone like made a list of Pulp Fiction ripoffs. This is just a random like Reddit post. But here's just to give an idea.
Can I guess them? Can I guess them?
Okay. Yeah, you guess some. I'll tell you if they're on the list.
Well, some of the obvious ones are like Killing Zoe, which was
does that count as a ripoff? Because that's Roger Avery's movie, and he's a co-writer of Pulp Fiction. So I feel like that's not.
Well, I guess that is a kind of an interesting point that we might maybe discuss because like their whole relationship is weird because it seems, at least until recently, they have not been speaking, I think, and now they have a podcast like
the
us.
Opposite of not speaking.
Yeah, but yeah, I guess to what extent, is it Richard or Roger? Roger Avery has contributed to the like vibe of the movie because he is credited as like stories by as opposed to screenplay by. So I guess I'm kind of curious. But yeah, in my head it always felt like a ripoff in some way. But there's that one. There's what's it called?
That is the first one on this list. So you're not the only one who considers it that way.
Well, 2 days. Is it 2 Days in the Valley?
2 Days in the Valley.
How many days are in the Valley?
Absolutely in there. I saw that. One of the first movies I saw with nude breasts in them.
Oh, with Charlize Theron's nude breasts.
They're Charlize Theron's nude breasts. Visible in both 2 Days in the Valley and Reindeer Games. And yes, I was just the right age to know that fact right off the top of my head.
What is it? Mr. Skin? Dr. Skin? That was like the website that would tell you when there's...
Hey, my name's John. Mr. Skin's my dad's name.
Let me think. What Way of the Gun? Is that on there?
Way of the Gun is on this list. I thought for a second it wasn't on this list. I was like, that's an obvious choice. I never loved that movie. I found that movie a little boring.
Yeah, I think I have seen it, but I don't remember much of it, if anything. Do they count stuff like Lock, Stock in there?
Lock, Stock is not on this list, but I think it's safe to say Lock, Stock. Would Lock, Stock have been made? I don't know how it was financed, but I don't think it would have. Certainly wouldn't have gotten the big American release had it not been for Pulp Fiction.
Well, I was actually thinking about it, listening to Tim Roth be British. I was like, this is exactly kind of the tenor that I think Guy Ritchie ended up imitating in a lot of his early movies. That is how his characters talk.
Yeah.
So,
But I mean,
yeah.
anything with, it's just in the mid to late 90s, every movie were criminals that made jokes. And it was just all, I'll just go through this really quickly. What else? Freeway, a movie I like. Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead, which I've never seen.
Oh, I was going to say that. Yeah, nice.
8 Heads in a Duffel Bag, which I used to see on Comedy Central. That's Joe Pesci and I think it's the non-Andrew McCarthy guy from
James Spader?
No, from Weekend at Bernie's. Jonathan. This is
Silverman? Is it Jonathan Silverman?
I think it's Jonathan Silverman. I'm going to double check. What if I'm wrong? And this will be a completely useless waste of time.
8 Heads in a Duffel Bag. I've never even heard of this movie.
I am completely wrong. Jonathan Silverman is not in this movie.
Is it David Spade?
David Spade is in the movie. What am I thinking?
I've never heard of this movie.
It's he's got 8 heads. They're in a duffel bag.
Cool.
Go's a biggie people always list because Go's fun.
Go is very fun. I haven't seen it in forever, but I remember enjoying it.
Get Shorties on this list. I don't know if it should be. I mean, the book already existed. The fact that it starred Travolta,
John
Travolta,
certainly. Yeah.
And it's produced by
the fact
Jersey
that
Films
John Travolta
well.
in this movie is holding an Elmer Leonard book when he dies.
Is he? That book is I couldn't read the title.
Yeah, I think it is the book that ends up inspiring Jackie Brown.
Well, that's Rum Punch. I've actually got that here somewhere.
Yeah, I think isn't that not what he's reading? I think he's definitely reading an Elmer Brown book.
I feel like it's an older
Elmer Leonard book. Am I wrong about that?
Boondock Saints, a movie I never liked. I will always remember.
Oh God, that movie is terrible.
I will always remember being invited to a friend's house in high school. And he invited another friend and I over. And he's like, you got to see this movie. This movie's so good. And he puts it on. And so there's 3 of us. And the 2 of us who haven't seen it are just like more and more hating it. And it's one of the just awkward experiences where like someone's showing you something they love. And you're just like, this fucking sucks. I love, what's the documentary called about the director of?
Oh God, the Overnight.
It's
so
if you
good.
haven't seen it, incredible film. Very Bad Things, the Peter Berg movie. That's a movie.
Yes.
That's a movie that taught me. So it's going to sound silly, but as a kid, I loved, dark comedy. And to this day, that's a lot of what I write. But Very Bad Things is a movie that taught me that I don't love all dark comedy. Because I would see movies like Throw Mama from the Train or Pulp Fiction. It's like, oh, a character dies and there's a corpse and it's so funny. And then I put on Very Bad Things. I'm like, they accidentally kill a sex worker on their bachelor party, have to hide it. How funny. And then we get the scene where Ari Gold, what the fuck's Ari Gold's name?
Jeremy Piven.
Jeremy Piven is fucking the sex worker and accidentally stabs her through the head on the broken towel rack or whatever. And then we have to listen to her gurgle and cry as she bleeds out. And I was like, I guess I need some comedy in my black comedy.
Yeah. I remember liking that movie. I also only ever saw it once when I was 12. So I don't know.
Well, I
don't remember much.
That's a good segue now that we've talked about everything other than Pulp Fiction. So we obviously, this movie's a masterpiece. The masterpiece. Unlike you, I had not seen it in many, many years. This was probably my first time seeing it as not a student of some kind, like post-college.
Oh, wow.
So it's been not too long. I'm not that old. But it's been a while. Like, a few things I noticed for the first time. One, it was the first time I ever realized that Mia has an overdose because she snorts heroin. I always thought, because I didn't really I didn't really know the difference. I always thought it was just that she had done too many drugs. Which also technically true. But the fact that she confuses what type of drug, that's important. Never caught that before this movie.
It's also funny because And you kind of contextualize, if you ever watch it again, Eric Stoltz like saying to Vincent Vega, John Travolta's character, "Oh, I don't have what is like the bowls for it or whatever. All I have is a baggie. Is that okay?" And he's like, "Yes." And that seems like superfluous dialogue at the time, and then you realize, oh, no, this is actually setting up something.
It's literally this moment right now that I'm realizing that that's part of the confusion. Because I'll be honest, guys, I don't know how you package and carry heroin.
I forget what it was, but he tells him, I don't have whatever it is, a traditional container for heroin. Will a baggie work? And he's like, yes.
He asks,
and that's why she
Patricia
gets confused.
Arquette to get the baggies. It's funny reading about this, reading the behind the scenes stuff about this movie, how much of an issue the heroin use was. Because in the mid 90s, heroin chic had been such a thing and was becoming such a taboo that apparently that is the reason Lawrence Fishburne did not take the role of Jules, because he thought the movie glamorized heroin use. And it's also one of the main reasons that TriStar Pictures backed out of doing the movie.
Wow.
But
we're lucky that Harvey Weinstein got his big break.
Our hero. Also the hero of the movie Overnight, unfortunately. Love a movie where Harvey Weinstein's the voice of reason. But I guess if you made a crime movie now where all the characters were doing fentanyl, our current even shittier version of heroin, I guess that people would be a little uneasy about that. But to go back to my thing, the other thing I noticed watching it now as an adult, what the fuck is Zed and his group's deal? What's their thing?
I think about it in terms of intersectionality. Yes, they're Confederate Southern racists.
Sure. Who live in LA.
Yes, but they are also gay.
Yeah.
Yes, they're into, I guess, leather S&M shit.
Yeah, they're BDSM. They're gay BDSM, leather daddy, Confederate racists, and also murderers?
And the funniest thing to me about this whole thing is that they have a routine, which makes it seem like they've done this before.
The spider has caught more. The spider web has caught more flies. They have a code.
Yeah, and they know exactly what to do. He has to call Zed. He has to bring out the gimp. It's all already planned. So I don't know what life they live.
Which room they want to assault the guys in?
Yeah. It's all just they've already run this. I kind of oscillate between. I like it more that they have done this before, but I also kind of like the idea that they always fantasized about doing this. And this is the first time that they're like, okay, we've done all these dry runs and now we can finally do this. Yeah, I don't know. And also, they're, I assume, gay, or at least gay interested, right? Because they, end up raping Marcellus. So they contain multitudes.
Okay, I'm gonna get right out here in the same way of having not seen it in years. I'm gonna throw down a bit of a hot take here. Okay.
Ooh.
Let's separate the movie into its three main chapters. There's obviously prologues and little interstitials, but three main chapters. We have 1, Vincent and Mia. 2, the gold watch. 3, the Bonnie situation. I gotta turn off these fucking emojis on the Zoom. It's just nonstop over here, and no one else can see it. Anyway, three chapters. Vincent and Mia. Everything in that, from Jules and Vincent going to see Brett and crew, through the end where she says her Fox Force 5 joke. Perfect. About as perfect as cinema could be.
Here's a question. Do you think... Because I feel like that prologue is not just a prologue to that, right? It's also a prologue to the Bonnie situation, right?
Yes. Yeah. I like...
You are saying that sequence of scenes is the best in the movie.
I'm just gonna rank. I'll just rank the main 3 chapters. The first one, perfect as all hell. The third one, everything with Harvey Keitel is perfect. Everything in the wrap up in the diner is great. We could talk about one of the main flaws of this movie, which is the very 90s feeling that using constant racial slurs is like just a hip, edgy thing to do. And it is so fucking annoying. And it is
also annoying because by who delivers it.
That's the scene where it's its worst, because it's Tarantino saying it repeatedly, his own dialogue, just saying the N-word over and over again. This is a masterpiece. That's one of the things that is aging it poorly, because it's just a dated attitude towards that thing. So I'm gonna say, watching it now as an adult, the Butch storyline, as good as I think Bruce Willis is the lesser of the 3.
Is it because I agree with you? I agree with your rankings. I wonder how much it is the Fabienne and the Esmeralda of it all. Because, I mean, mostly Fabienne. I also think Esmeralda is pretty forgettable. Is that her name, right? It's Esmeralda.
Yes. Esmeralda, played by Angela Jones. A character who is just a character from a short film that Tarantino saw. That apparently that short film gave him the idea to have a cleaner type character, the wolf. And so as tribute, he both cast Angela Jones to play that same character that she played in the short in this. And then after the success of this movie, he helped bankroll a feature-length adaptation of that short called Curdled, which I checked, and the reviews are bad. But yeah, all the like mixing and matching of different like writers using each other's scenes and actors is so messy with this movie, with like stuff like that. But yes, the Fabienne role played by
Maria de Medeiros, I believe.
Yes, she's a Portuguese actress.
It's not her fault. I would say she's directed in a very specific way. And to the point where I almost wonder if it's all intentional, if Tarantino wants her to be annoying. Because it almost like, I can almost see, and that's like maybe the way I prefer to see that movie or to watch her scenes, is that she's almost kind of like a pre-parody on the Manic Pixie Dream Girl way, because like the way what she talks about is kind of unhinged. I mean, it's not unhinged, but it's like so weird. She's like this big weirdo, but but she's also supposed to be sexy because she has that baby voice and all that, and she wants to give Butch oral pleasure or what have you. And so I kind of want to view it as a parody. I don't know necessarily. I guess I never read if Tarantino has ever talked about her characterization and what his intention with it was. Yeah.
I don't think it's a parody, but I do think it is a pastiche of an archetype, such as so many of these characters are, of the kind of like childlike, waifish girlfriend. And I think they chose because she has to make a big, silly, dumb mistake. And so they're like,
okay. Can we pause on that for a second? It's not her fault. If this watch is that important to Butch could have packed that watch.
Which he says. This is a genuine question I have. How do you think Butch and Fabienne have a healthy relationship?
I mean, I think in times they do, because there is like kind of sometimes tenderness between them. And I think he definitely catches himself around her where he wants to treat her in this very gentle way, but he's also like this big oaf of a man. And so, and I feel like the way that he does kind of underscores that he does care for her, and he wants to be kind to her, but she is also stupid as fuck.
I think we need to know, does he flip tables normally or only when his life is in danger, to really know how
that is
or not
true.
But it is a nice moment where he stops and says, no, it's not your fault. If it was as important to me as it is, I needed to explain that to you. I should have said that's the only thing I cared about. It is. I think it's a very important moment for that character. But back to what we were saying, like, I remember, I think it's the Roger Ebert review where he's like, the dialogue in this movie is so good. There's this great scene where Bruce Willis' character's girlfriend is talking about potbellies. And I think it's Roger Ebert specifically calls that conversation out. That conversation is dumb. It's really dumb because it comes after everything with John Travolta and Uma Thurman, and John Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson, which is all so good. And then we just get this real downbeat of the uninteresting scene with Esmeralda, followed by the overlong uninteresting scene with Fabian.
Yeah. I almost wonder if the actress would have been directed differently, or it would have been someone else with a different vibe if that would have worked. But yeah, the way that it kind of comes across, it just feels like, as you say, kind of the trajectory is kind of a slowing down, just kind of a dull. It's a bit dull. I mean, it's I will say, in defense of that potbelly thing, I actually genuinely think about that as I look at my potbelly. I was like, oh, well, some people find it sexy.
She has the one great line, the one genuinely great line, which is like, it's interesting how the things we find pleasurable to the touch are so infrequently pleasurable to the eye. It is interesting. It just goes on too long. I don't think it has anything to do with the performance. I think you could just trim the scene. Look, again, to be clear, we are with these. This is a masterpiece. We're pointing out the slight flaws that exist. This is not. We're grading these scenes on a curve.
I mean, also, like, who wants to hear us say, "Oh, the twist contest scene is really good"? Yes, it is really good. Everyone knows that.
In addition to that, that's the part I always found a little dull about that storyline. But now, watching it now, years later, I find the whole Zed sequence mean-spirited in a way that I didn't before. And
Do you think it's kink shaming?
Yes. No, I think it is. It's just, at the end of the day, I think our kind of cultural thought of how to handle the subject matter of rape in film is different. And I think, because it is, at the end of the day, basically a joke that this big crime lord gets raped.
I'm not saying that is not its intention, especially for the time. I think that's probably very likely that was the intention. But maybe the way that I watch it, or the way that I have watched it recently, it seems just kind of cruel. Like, I genuinely, I feel for Marcellus at that point, like when the kind of the shot of when Butch comes back with the samurai sword, and it feels degrading and demeaning, and you feel for Marcellus in that scene. I'm pretty sure you are right that is not how it was intended. I think it was intended probably more as for shock value, or for like a dark humorous moment, but I
think it's mostly intended as a reference to Deliverance.
Well, I've never seen Deliverance, but yes, really? I understand that there's rape.
I think it is. I think it's meant to be a little shocking. I think it is. I think it goes back to really the thing I was saying about Very Bad Things. about that woman gurgling in her own blood, which is honestly, it's a great shot. To go back to the Peter Berg movie.
Is she like lying on the bathroom floor or something? Like
they
that?
realize she's been stabbed, and it's been so many years. She falls over, but all I remember is that they run outside and they shut the door on her, and they're holding the door shut, and they don't know what to do, and they're just standing there while they listen to her die. And
I see.
A very similar shot to a scene from the original Silent Hill, in which spoilers, they're going to remake that game soon, so I won't say where a character dies, and it's a similar thing where a character cannot help that character and is just horrified, blocking the door as they listen to the other character die. But I know there's just something about The Very Bad Things where it's so horrific that it taints all the comedy that comes before and after. And then I think that's a personal taste thing. There's a movie called The Coffee Table that came out this year. That's a very, very dark comedy that I haven't seen. But because like the central idea sounds so unpleasant to me that I don't think I can it's purposefully unpleasant, but I don't think I can enjoy the rest. But it like comes back to this Pulp Fiction thing. Marvin gets shot in the face. Bang. We see literal skull bits hanging off of Jules's hair. Yeah. But we hear Marcellus getting raped for like a minute and a half.
Yeah. And that's true.
And I don't think it's used in, I think it's serving the purpose it was intended. Like, this isn't incompetence. I just think it, to me now, as years have passed, I always compare things to like recipes. And I just think it's a spice that's too strong that it overpowers the rest of that dish. And it's because it's all just like, there's no real, it's just like, and then they go into a place and then whoopsies, there's rapists there. Again, it's all great. Him choosing the weapons is incredible. It's so, when he kills the first guy and we get the great spin around with the blood, it's all fantastic. Ving Rhames' monologue to Zed about all the ways he's going to kill him is very satisfying. I don't know. It feels tonally different to me. And watching it now as an adult, it kind of, the rest of the movie is so fun, and that bit's less fun to me. It feels
That's true. I also noticed, I don't necessarily disagree with you. This has always been, I think, the weakest of the three. And again, as you said, this is all on a curve. The weakest of these three is better than the list of movies we mentioned earlier in the podcast. Yeah.
I love Pulp Fiction, and I genuinely like this whole sequence. It's these things keep it from being the Christopher Walken monologue and the whole intersection scene where he sees Ving Rhames and runs him over. And then Kathy Griffin apparently playing herself, which I never realized.
And Margaret Cho as well.
Is that Margaret Cho?
Yeah, she's the one right next to her.
Ah. Are you sure about that? I think that might be a woman named Karen Maruyama, who is also a...
Really? I always thought it was Margaret Cho. Huh.
You
that
talk.
Is so
I'm going to
funny.
look it up.
Yeah, I mean, I might be wrong and maybe racist, but I feel like I always thought it was Margaret Cho.
She dated Quentin Tarantino.
Who did?
Margaret Cho.
Oh, maybe that's why I think that it's her. But yeah, I mean, you might be right. Yeah, no, it is a Karen Maruyama. Looking at her picture, that's definitely the accurate thing. I don't know. Yeah. Oh, okay.
And they did. He did a guest appearance.
I think he also dated Kathy Griffin. Did he not?
I don't know. I have a list of. Have you seen the list of Tarantino's wish list casting for this movie?
Yes, though I haven't seen it recently. So
it's fascinating. So we could definitely talk about it later. But Kathy Griffin is on the list as a potential for one of the roles. So he was clearly like friends with her.
Yeah. That's also kind of funny. I mean, yeah, he also either dated or were just friends with Julia Sweeney, who's in this movie too.
Sweeney on SNL yet when she was in this?
I think so. It's Pat, I think, if anything, is earlier. Like, she's definitely there when Dana Carvey is there, so it must be before.
This was actually the last year she was on. She was there for 4 years, 90 to 94.
Okay, no.
And It's Pat came out the same year as this.
2 classics. When are we going to talk about that one? Can I mention real quick that something I noticed this time around about the gold watch is when Butch comes back to his house, he opens the door, he grabs the watch, and at that point, he can just leave. Like, if he leaves, basically none of it happens, and what he wants to do is eat Pop-Tarts. And it's so funny to me that because Butch was craving Pop-Tarts, not only did Vincent Vega die, but also Marcellus gets raped. Like, all of it happens because this man just was craving some Pop-Tarts.
What does Butch say? He says something. He's gotten the watch, and he's turning around to leave, and then he looks around, he's like, I got away with it. And he says something like, it's not this, but it's something like, "Ooh, it's all coming up, Butch," or something, as he's going to, as he's deciding to grab the Pop-Tarts. I forget what it is.
Oh yeah, I don't remember what he says, but well,
I mean, like, yeah, that is the thing. Is like this movie was in the mid-90s the epitome of cool, which is hilarious because these characters are for the most part idiots.
But also just very uncool. I think John Travolta looks like such a dork. He clearly looks like, a guy who thinks that he looks cool, but he doesn't look cool at all.
My mom made 2 big observations watching Pulp Fiction for the first time. One, Bonnie is going to notice that those all those sheets are gone.
Of course.
We were trying to explain to her. I was like, I think Jimmy's just trying to get more money. I don't think he thinks Bonnie's going to care about the sheets. Either way, Winston gave him enough money. Either way, that was one of her observations. Her second observation in that same sequence, when they're getting their prison-style shower, she went, John Travolta's so fat.
And so pale, too. He's very pale, and he has that farmer's tan a little bit. And I appreciated that. That was brave. Good for John Travolta.
Well, he's great. Vincent is not cool. The whole sequence where he shows up to pick up Mia, and he is so high, and he's just stumbling around trying to use the intercom. Yeah. Oh, yes. Okay, thank you. It's so funny. And then, like when he's dealing with the wolf and he's just like, just such an idiot.
But it's kind of funny how, I think it's just the dialogue makes everything seem cool. Even when, the people are actively uncool, they still are doing it in kind of a cool way. And this movie has swagger, I think is what it is. It's just when it cuts to black and Tarantino's name comes up at the end, you're just like, I don't know. I keep thinking back, what would have happened if I saw it, like we're an adult in 94 and saw this? I would have been fucking blown away. And that is such a fucking mic drop to just like cut to black your name to that after the sequence. And it's just, wow. I don't know. This movie is so confident.
Well, that really is. It's the first moment is really when the music changes during the opening credits. It's just such a confident thing to do. It's fun. I really think like you can tell so much about how much a movie is like feeling itself by the way it handles its opening credits. I always think to an opening credits cut, and I feel like a lot of movies have done a similar thing now, but the hard cut to credits. And the first, like one of the early times I saw it, at least in more modern movies, it made me laugh so hard was in Adam Wingard's movie The Guest.
Oh, I haven't seen it.
And I believe that movie fucking rules. And my friend just auditioned for his next movie, and if she gets it, I'll be so jealous. But I wish her luck, but I'll be so jealous. But no, it's I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, the opening is just Dan Stevens running down the street, like just like working out and running, and he's just like looks so like committed and serious, and it's just a steady shot of him at dawn just running, looking so like this guy's fucking intense. And then hard cut The Guest with like just full text on the screen, and like I think it's a big music as well. And last year's Evil Dead Rise, did you see that? Did we do that?
No, I haven't. No,
it fucking rules. Evil Dead Rise is so fun. And the title reveal of that movie is the most confident, like, horror title reveal. There's something about using your opening credits to just, like, throw your dick around that I find very charming and amusing. Can you think of any good examples before this? Of, like...
Before Pulp Fiction?
I mean, like, obviously you get the... the really, well, like you have the James Bond opening titles. I guess that's too broad a question.
Yeah. I think there are a lot of very good title sequences. Mm-hmm. Of course. I mean, Hitchcock's, almost all of them are pretty cool and interesting. The Pink Panther.
Joker Folie à Deux animated sequence.
I think there's I think, the Pulp Fiction opening credits are definitely, again, very cool. But, yeah, I don't know that they are a thing that I find that unique, I guess, maybe. But maybe in retrospect it is, and it's just something I'm not appreciating.
Is there any movie, do you have any favorite opening credits in anything?
Wow, that's a great question. I do love North by Northwest a lot. It's such a beautiful, I mean, the visuals are great because I also kind of fetishize mid-century New York City, and that's great. And I think the
what are the credits for North by Northwest? Is it Saul Bass?
No, I don't think. I guess I don't know if it's not one of those Saul Bassian sequences.
Like Psycho?
Yeah, it's you kind of see reflections of a lot of skyscrapers in Midtown Manhattan. While
the title sequence.
While Bernard Herrmann's music is playing.
The first sequence to use kinetic type, or simply type in motion. So this is basically the origins of what we now call motion graphics.
Well, there you go.
And it is Saul Bass.
Oh, he did those too. That's cool. He's a talented guy. By the way,
he's an up and comer.
By the way, the book that Vincent Vega reads is not an Elmer Leonard book.
I think it looked older.
Yeah. No, it's called. Yeah. Oh fuck! I missed that point in the where I was reading about it. But anyway, it's not that book. And now I'm sad because I feel like it would have been very cool if it was.
Do you have any thoughts on like the different chapters or the structure themselves, or do you want to go on to this casting wish list?
Let's see. I mean, I love the little. I guess the thing is that I don't know how essential it is, the lack of chronology necessarily. I think it's cool, but to be honest, I don't know that the movies or the sections are entwined enough for it to really matter that they're out of sequence, I suppose. It is kind of cool because you're like, oh, fuck, John Travolta is dead. And then John Travolta is alive. And there's a lot of cute, maybe not a lot, but there's some cute kind of little shots that you might not see at first. Because you see John Travolta walk in the background of the Honey Bunny and Pumpkin opening. You kind of see him go to the bathroom, for example. So there's like tiny stuff like that you see, or like when you see them after the Ezekiel shootout in the beginning, the next time you see Travolta, or not Travolta, Sam Jackson, is that he's wearing like the t-shirt and stuff, and you're like, why is he wearing this?
We don't get the explanation of their outfits until
so there's stuff like that I think is very fun and playful, so I definitely like it, but I don't know that it's like essential to the dramatic thrust of the movie, if that makes sense, even though it is fun.
I think it's so the movie is really an kind of anthology, but I think the idea, a lot of anthologies have little connecting pieces, but the idea to really make it like all kind of like the same kind of circle of characters and having them all take place basically simultaneously, I think it does give the movie more of a cohesiveness than anthologies have. Like all anthologies by their very nature have that like thing where you're always walking out, same as like a sketch show. You're always walking out going, well, which ones did I like more? Which ones did I like less? And having them be disconnected kind of keeps you from doing that, even though obviously that's how we started this conversation. But I think it's also like it gives you get that like kind of dopamine of like, oh, that's why that happened. That's why he's dressed like that.
And the rewatchability factor is there too, because when you rewatch, there's more stuff for you to be on the lookout for, and that's very cool. I was also thinking about Shortcuts. Have you seen the movie Shortcuts?
Is that the Robert Altman movie?
Yeah.
I have not.
Oh, you should. It's based off of Raymond Carver's short stories about Los Angeles, and I think it came out in 91 or 92, I believe. And it has, I never thought of it in conjunction with Pulp Fiction before, but I feel like it's also a very interesting LA movie in the way that Pulp Fiction is, because it is very specific to a very specific type of LA, and it has a very specific, sense of place. So yeah, I wonder how much, if at all, he was inspired by something like Shortcuts to make this.
I've never seen Shortcuts. The only things I know about it are that Robert Altman,
Julianne Moore is naked,
and that Julianne Moore does full frontal nudity, reinforcing the idea that I was becoming a movie fan and going through puberty right around the same time. Right around the same time that Julianne Moore was doing interviews around The Big Lebowski and saying she would never do a nude scene like that again. And that stuck in my memory that maybe I should pick up Shortcuts. And right around the same time that I rented Reindeer Games, partially because I heard it had nudity. And this all connects. I first got into David Lynch because I read a review in either my parents' copy of Newsweek or New Yorker of Mulholland Drive talking about how much nudity and sex scenes were in it. And that's why Mulholland Drive is the first David Lynch movie I've ever seen. Because I persuaded my fellow 13-year-old boyfriends to go sneak into it.
Wow. A diary of a horny teen.
To go back to the chronology thing. So we talked about all the ripoffs earlier, and they all, like you kind of alluded to, ripped off very surface level elements of the movie. The criminals, the smart aleck criminals, the sudden violence, and the non-chronologic storytelling. So many of these ripoffs, or these, movies that followed in this movie's wake, did those things. What do you think makes this movie as special as it is? What is the hidden sauce that those movies were missing?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that when I was watching it this time around. It seems to me that this is something Tarantino talks about a lot in his interviews. Like, I want to write the movies I want to watch. And I think that is accurate and that is true. I feel like a lot of these movies were made because it was the cool thing to make, as opposed to like, I have a genuine affection and opinion about the genre and about these types of movies. And so I think that's why that works. I think he genuinely is making stuff that he himself finds entertaining. And in that way, he provides his own very raised on VHS, like, like perspective on these things. That's why he doesn't. I think movies later on that do the thing of referencing other movies usually do, again, a very surface level job of it, in the sense of like, you would reference the most popular movie there is of the genre, as opposed to like Tarantino is like, I'm gonna reference like some weird samurai movie that I saw one like in the 70s, and I was one of like 10 people in the US to have seen it. It feels like the reason he chooses these references is because to him they make sense cohesively, as opposed to like just a thing to do when you are making a movie. So it feels like it's a difference between this guy chooses to make these movies this way because his brain works this way, and a lot of other people choosing to make their movies that way because they think it's the cool thing to do or the thing that sells. And I don't mean to kind of like besmirch other people who have come after it. I think Go, as you said, is really fun. Yeah, Go is great. I love early Guy Ritchie movies, but it definitely feels like it was a thing of studios were like, oh, well, Pulp Fiction is big. Let's buy a bunch of screenplays that kind of seem like Pulp Fiction and maybe even tweak them in a way that gets them to be Pulp Fiction-y more. I remember watching some feature on The Usual Suspects on the DVD, where they were talking about how the first trailer of The Usual Suspects, which is not really Pulp Fiction-y if you watch the movie, except maybe for the chronology thing a little bit, is that the first trailer was like they spliced together a bunch of like the quippiest lines in the movie and then like had the soundtrack be pop, 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 pop. And it was like, it did not sell the movie at all, but that was just the thing to do at the time. I don't know, I'm rambling, but it feels like the reason why this works is because it's authentic to the person making it, as opposed to like, this is the expedient thing to do to get something made.
Yeah, I mean, there's genuine inspiration and passion behind this, and like to go to your reference idea, to once again use my oft-repeated kind of recipe metaphor of like when he's, Tarantino references things all the time. People have accused him of ripping off things because he'll take all costumes and he'll take little elements, but it's always like he understands what is cool, what is powerful about the different flavors he's taking and putting into his dish, and then he's recontextualizing them, understanding what they're good for. Like a perfect example to me, partially because this is my Halloween costume this year.
Ooh, wow.
But so I just held up a red Warriors vest that I'll be wearing for Halloween. But like in Walter Hill's The Warriors, a movie I obviously love, the character of the radio DJ, played by the great late Lynn Thigpen, we never see her face. We only see her lips as she's speaking into the radio microphone. And it's because she isn't really a character. She is the voice of the gangs. This is how the criminal underworld spreads information. So it makes sense. Like, Walter Hill's making that movie, he's thinking of like Greek myths. Like, he viewed her as like kind of a Greek chorus. So it made sense that like a Greek chorus would wear masks, like he's not going to show her actual face. Tarantino lifts that exact shot for the introduction of Mia. We only see her lips speaking. However, it's an incredibly evocative shot to just see a woman's lips speaking into a microphone without getting to see her face. Incredibly evocative. It is used for completely different reasons in this movie. In this, we're delaying getting to see this character, this Mia, that we have kept hearing about for 20 minutes. We're continuously delaying the final reveal of who this woman is, and it builds up the kind of importance and power of her character. So he's taking a really cool shot that's just visually cool from another movie, but he understands why that shot's powerful, and therefore he can use it for a completely different purpose. But I think in addition to the passion and the references, I think at the end of the day, Tarantino is just a master of the scene. Like, he writes scenes like no one else, where you just the sequence of Vincent and Jules before they go to meet Brett, where they are walking into the apartment. Just the amount of funny stuff that's in that scene that is both funny dialogue and works as both setting up their characters, also works at setting up the main dilemma of that chapter. This whole thing about this tension of, if Vincent fucks up while taking out Mia, very bad things will happen to him. And then also sets up like what these guys are, and like the whole thing of, let's hang back, let's get in character. Like, all that
like, they're professionals.
Yes.
And that kind of sets up the other arc too. Is like, this is their job. They've been doing this job, and one of them is burnt out, essentially, at the end of the day. That's all it is. Jules is a professional man who's burnt out on his job that to him is as rote as an office job at this point. Like, he recites the same quote that he's been doing 1,000 times. It doesn't mean... I think that's kind of the interesting thing about that sequence, is that we, as the audience, perceive it as, again, like this very badass speech or whatever. But to him, it's like a rote thing that he has probably said, 79 times already. And it's sort
How
of
many
just...
people do you think Jules has killed over the course of his life?
Well, doesn't he say that? Well, I think he says something kind of similar. Like, I've been saying this so many times.
He says for years, but I don't think he gives a number. Yeah. Yeah,
he doesn't give a number. I don't know. I would say 79. A good number as any. I mean, so yeah, it's kind of an interesting, contextualization of that scene too, is that it works as character development without you actually knowing that it is. I feel like even a lot of the kind of the banter stuff that characters have do end up paying off in some way. Some stuff is just there to be fun, but a lot of it actually does pay off, either in ways that it illuminates their character or just straight up sets up something else that is going to happen, which is kind of cool. And I think is missed by a lot of the movies that came after that were just like, let's just have them talk about pulp culture. So that's not necessarily what this is.
Well, that is what, like, a lot of contemporaneous reviews would just highlight the fact that, these are movie criminals that talk like real people. And that was such a thing in the 90s that, like, nowadays we don't even, like, that's just the way all movie characters kind of talk. The idea that they reference pop culture, but, like, the idea that the Clerks characters were talking about Star Wars, that the Joss Whedon Buffy characters were having this hip banter, and that these Tarantino characters were talking about McDonald's was like mind-blowing to people. So then in all these ripoffs, you do just have these scenes where characters have conversations about nothing that's completely irrelevant to the plot. But like, when we get the fun conversation about foot massages, we don't need to get into Tarantino's foot thing, but when we get the whole fun conversations about foot massages, it is funny. It is genuinely funny when the twist and the way Sam Jackson plays, fuck you. Like, it's genuinely funny. It sets up their characters while we're still being introduced to them, but also it is setting up the entire drama of that chapter. All the stuff about Mia and Vincent. Like, the dialogue is so funny and it's so well played. Those characters are so fun. Their conversation, when she talks about the joke and she says it's embarrassing, and he says, I promise I won't laugh. And she says, no, Vincent, that's what I'm afraid of. Is one of the funniest moments. But like, it's so great, but it's not just there to be like, oh, look, we're talking about like silly stuff. It's that we are building the idea that these characters have a genuine connection, which is really the feint. It's the distraction. We're thinking that this story is going with Vincent is going to cheat on his boss's wife, which will be the dilemma. And then we have the swerve that, oh no, it's so much worse than that. But so like these conversations about nothing, to also take, also from the 90s, every article about Seinfeld, conversations about nothing. They're not about nothing. They're incredibly well written. They're incredibly well paced, and these are perfectly crafted scenes.
Yeah. I wonder, what his writing process is with a lot of these. It seems like he just kind of talks to himself and acts everything out, and he just does it. So it is almost more impressive that way, that it's just like that's in his brain. He's just like coming out with little movies in his head, and then he plops them down. And it's pretty cool. I don't know. It's pretty
his
impressive.
Writing process is that he writes a movie, begins casting it, and then goes, this isn't good enough to be my 10th movie, and throws it out. That's his writing process.
Yeah. I'm curious what because I guess the movie critic or the film critic is not gonna be it. And so what will it be? I also am kind of dubious, if we're on that subject, whether he is gonna retire after 10. That seems crazy to me. It's like Steven Soderbergh retiring. I don't know.
To again get this this episode off the Tarantino dick writing train. It's so funny the way, as a younger man, he says, I'm only going to make 10 movies because when directors get old and make more movies, they stop being cool. And then now he's older, and there's nothing less cool about Tarantino than this stupid rule he's made that he can only make 10 movies. It's the least cool thing about him. Make more movies.
Make more movies. I feel like he also has already made 10. I think the way he counts them is weird.
Look,
it's like
I get it. It wasn't his choice necessarily to split up Kill Bill, but still, he wrote True Romance and
4 Rooms. He directed some of 4 Rooms. He wrote From Dusk Till Dawn. I don't know. I hope he keeps doing something. I mean, if he wants to be writing about movies, I guess that's interesting too. But I think he does have such an ear for dialogue and for interesting, compelling dialogue that it would be a shame if he didn't do that. I also think it is kind of helpful for him to have the movie as an editing function, because I started reading the novelization of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and that is like fun, but it so far also meanders a little bit. The opening, have you read it?
I own it. I have not read it, which is a way I can describe many, many books.
Yeah, I bought it, and I'm on the record of not being a fan of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but I was like, maybe I'll read the book. And I started listening to the audiobook because it's read by Jennifer Jason Leigh. So that's kind of cool.
That's fun.
But the opening is a very, very, very extended version of the Al Pacino, Rick Dalton scene. And they just talk about his roles in Westerns and other Western actors as they go. And for me, as someone not familiar with lesser Westerns of the mid-century, it almost felt like an improv exercise where you're supposed to, be an expert on a thing that you know nothing about or like that you're making up. And I was like, I'm not sure if he's making up these actors and roles or if these are real things. But yeah, it just felt like it, because he has the freedom of the page and that could be unlimited. I feel like maybe that's not necessarily to his benefit sometimes. Maybe
they've been doing Pacino's been doing a series of interviews recently, and he talked about how they filmed that whole thing like for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which does seem crazy because it's like, what's the point of any of it? Like, it's so clear in the editing. Is that Sally Menke? She edits all these movies, right?
I think Sally Menke is...
Oh, she passed, right?
She passed. I don't know if she passed before or after the movie.
Oh, she did die. She died in 2010. Yeah, she would not have edited Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
No, yeah. I forget who edited it, though. But yeah, she hasn't edited anything since, I guess, before Django?
The last she edited, yes, Inglourious Basterds was the last of his movies that she edited.
Oof.
Who edited
Hello, Sally.
Hello, Sally. All the videos. Yes, if you don't know, back when she was the editor, he would have, when they filmed, have his actors wave at the camera and say, hello, Sally, because he knew she would see the footage.
Fred Raskin.
Fred Raskin.
He also... Oh, interesting. He was an assistant editor on also like Boogie Nights and a bunch of Paul Thomas Anderson movies. And then, yeah, also on Kill Bill.
To bring our conversation back, he's clearly a bud of James Gunn because he's edited most of his movies. And one of his first roles was editing... Wow, he went from Hard 8 to Tromeo and Juliet, the Troma movie written by James Gunn. So that
wow. That's cool. Yeah, I mean, that guy seems to have a very cool career. He also worked on Fast Five.
Yes, and he was the assistant on Kill Bill. So he was Sally Menke's assistant.
So I guess that's how he kind of graduated to that. Which is cool. It is, yeah.
If you have a beloved editor who makes all your movies and then she tragically passes, it does make sense that who are you going to go? Her assistant. Makes sense.
Yeah, it's also another kind of charming... I mean, yeah, I love it when, these renowned directors have a consistent editor collaborator and it happens to be a woman. I mean, yeah, Thelma Shoemaker with Scorsese too. I think that's pretty cool.
You know what I noticed watching this one? Speaking of his collaborators, so the movie is produced by Lawrence Bender. How did they meet?
Well, I think he produced Reservoir Dogs too.
Did they? He met Tarantino in 1990, who gave him the script for Reservoir Dogs. Right. Lawrence Bender, I didn't realize I've seen, him doing interviews in more modern days, but he is in Pulp Fiction.
Yes.
Do you know who
Yuppie
he is?
Scum?
He is the long-haired guy who Tim Roth threatens, or I
think
it's Tim Roth.
I think his name is like hippie, long-haired hippie scum or something like that.
Yes, because I believe Tim Roth just yells, "Get on the fucking ground, yuppie," or something. I was watching that and then seeing the credits and seeing that was Lawrence Better, I went, that guy looked so fucking young.
Yeah. He was young. I remember he was also handsome. He was
definitely he older than, looking at it now, he's in his mid-30s. He was older than Tarantino, who was 29 when he made this movie.
So cool.
Ooh. All right, you want to do this cast wish list?
All right.
So this recently, I forget who released this, but this was a wish list that Tarantino made when they were trying to cast the movie for all the main roles. He has some of these marked as first choice, strong, second choice, strong possibility, and then others that are just possibilities. And most of the roles have actors he wrote for. So Pumpkin, aka Ringo, Tim Roth, written for Tim, he writes, possibilities if Tim can't do it. Second choice is Johnny Depp. And then one thing when you see in this list, the same actors keep popping up. Then Christian Slater, Gary Oldman, Nick Cage, Eric Stoltz, who obviously went on to play Lance, and John Cusack. Honey Bunny, his first choice was Amanda Plummer. He wrote it for her. But his second choice was tied between Patricia Arquette, who went on to play Jodie, and Lily Taylor, who I've always thought looks like Amanda Plummer. So there you go. Then
I can see that.
Jennifer Jason Leigh, who in later years Tarantino would definitely work with. Bridget Fonda, who he would cast in his next movie. Jackie Brown, Phoebe Cates, or Marissa Tomei. I would love to see either of them in a Tarantino movie. I would love to see Phoebe Cates in any movie. She hasn't. She retired many years ago.
It is interesting to me because I feel like some of these I can definitely see playing Honey Bunny, but some of these I don't know. I feel like I'm hard pressed to think of them like bringing the anxious energy that Amanda Plummer's brought.
Deranged quality that Amanda Plummer brings to a lot of her roles.
Yeah.
That Jennifer Jason Leigh, I mean, this would have been right around
I think
the same
she would
time
certainly be one of
female.
But Phoebe Cates or Marissa Tomei, I think they're just like hot ladies of that moment.
Yeah.
Almost.
Jennifer Jason Leigh at that time, I mean, like, there's a more fragile craziness. Older, less so. I mean, like her in the recent season of Fargo.
She's so
very
good.
far from fragile. And then certainly Hateful Eight. But like, I guess that kind, I guess that's kind of the vibe in the manic last act of Single White Female. But okay, Vincent, written for Michael Madsen, turned it down to do Wyatt Earp, the Kevin Costner movie. He wrote it for Michael. His second choice was John Travolta. Then he has Alec Baldwin.
Strong second choice.
Yep. William Peterson. Oh, you got it up too, so you can read the next one. William Peterson, Jason Patric, Andy Garcia, Michael Keaton, Denzel Washington, Dennis Quaid, Robert Carradine, and Aidan Quinn. Tarantino never worked with Denzel Washington. Did work with Michael Keaton in this next movie. Jackie.
That is pretty wild. Yeah, that he and Denzel have never done anything. I think he would be a good fit for the Tarantino verse. Maybe in the last movie. Has Denzel Washington
ever said anything about Tarantino?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe he's Team Spike, because we know Spike Lee has his problems with QT.
Yes.
So,
and it's actually a similar thing. Apparently, they had an on-set feud during Tarantino was a script doctor a year before this.
On Crimson Tide.
Crimson Tide, and he added racial jokes, something he clearly thought was very funny. But I am not surprised. That does not seem like something that Denzel Washington would be into, and he apparently wasn't. But a few years later, apparently, they made up, and Denzel has said they buried the hatchet. But
That's good.
I think he would not have been interested in working on this movie at the time.
Though, but kind of imagining a Denzel and Sam Jackson duo for that. I mean, John Travolta is great, and he would bring entirely different energy, but I think that would have been actually very cool.
Has Denzel ever played an idiot? Like just a full-on dumbass?
It's a good question. I guess
got,
not that I know.
He's got too much like.
He has gravitas. I mean,
yeah.
That's true. I guess we don't know. Maybe in Gladiator too.
I mean, it does look like kind of a sillier role. I can't tell. But
yeah, but I feel like even in the sillier roles, he's always high status.
Yeah, like the Manchurian Candidate remake, he's losing his mind, but like you don't get the impression like he's not an idiot. I don't see any movie here where he is like low intelligence.
Yeah, that's true.
I certainly have not seen all these movies, but
yeah. All right.
He played that fucking idiot Macbeth, that dumb piece of shit. That real pussy whipped loser, Lord Macbeth.
Well, that one is also interesting too because, I mean, I guess it's a Coen brother movie.
Yeah.
But that Denzel in a Coen brothers movie would also be pretty interesting.
In a more regular Coen brothers movie, where presumably, like many Coen brothers characters, he would be playing an idiot.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, could you picture Denzel popping up in Burn After Reading?
that would be. I would watch that.
All right, you want to read the potential cast members for the role of Lance, the drug
dealer?
dealer?
It's also, I guess, these are order of appearance. That's why it's so weird for Lance to be the third. But okay, but no, that's not true because Jules would still have been up there with Vincent. Yeah, she has
Jules later for some reason. I don't know why.
John Cusack, Eric Stoltz.
The top choices.
Yeah,
Eric
the
Stoltz
part was.
Got it.
Yeah, wrote for John. But if he can't do it, I want Eric. And other possibilities. Michael Keaton again. So it's interesting because you can see him as sort of a younger stoner type, but also kind of the more, I guess, like aging gangster. So that's cool. Christian Slater again. Gary Oldman again. Robert Carradine again. Yes. Bill Paxton, Johnny Depp again, Nick Cage, Sam Jackson, and Eric Roberts.
Looking on the Wikipedia, apparently TriStar, when they were TriStar really wanted Gary Oldman based on his portrayal of Drexel in True Romance.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say Dracula.
Yeah, based on his I rewatched that. I just rewatched it last week. Got a good too. Halloween. Oh, really?
Or I watched it for the first time. We'll talk about it.
It's your first time seeing it?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll talk about it later in the episode.
Yeah.
Okay. Next we got Jodie, Patricia Arquette first. That's who played it. Then we got Bridget Fonda, Jennifer Beals, Pam Grier. Famously, Pam Grier read for it, but Tarantino did not cast her because he could not believe that any man would ever be able to date Pam Grier and yell at her. He found that too unbelievable. I'm sure she thought she loved that, but would have loved the role more. But that's okay. He gave her a much better role a few years later.
True.
And Busia Wright, Kathy Griffin, whose name is misspelled, which makes me think maybe they weren't friends. He spells Kathy
do we
with a
know
C
if
here.
Do we know that he actually physically typed up the list? I mean, also he is famous for misspellings. I mean, Inglorious Bastards is a prime example. So
another great example in this list, the role of Fabian is spelled Fabian, which is not. Which is not. Is that even a name, Fabian? Doesn't sound like
for a man.
It's a man's name. Is that the male version of Fabian?
I guess so. Yeah.
So yes. Angel of Eels, who I don't know. Sofia Coppola.
Yeah, who he would date.
Is that true?
Yeah, like Kill Bill, circa Kill Bill time, he dated Sofia Coppola.
I did not know that. Is that before or after she dated Spike Jonze?
I think it was after. I think after she got a divorce, because this was after Lost in Translation.
And Lost in Translation, Giovanni Ribisi is clearly doing an impression of Spike Jonze.
Yes.
Okay. Sofia Coppola. It's interesting. Like, he obviously had the big idea in Once Upon a Time of Hollywood to cast Nepo babies as the entire Manson clan. Something. Wait, is it Nepo? Not Nepo babies, just up and comers. Who's Mikey Madsen?
Yeah, she's not a Nepo baby. She's Honora. I don't think she is really
I know.
to
I'm
anyone.
so fucking excited for Honora.
That movie is very good.
No, she's not. She's
well,
not
I mean, Lena Dunham, I guess, is a Nepo baby.
She's an artist mother. Margaret Qualley is.
Yeah.
Who else? Sydney Sweeney's there. Is it? I guess he
she?
just was.
Austin Butler is in it.
You know what? I think I had it wrong. It isn't that it was Nepo babies. It was that he asked casting people, give me like the hottest up and comers, like the people who are like about to pop, and that's who he cast in those roles. And it just coincidentally, there are a lot of Nepo babies whenever you make a list of the hottest up and comers. Shockingly,
that's true.
Lily Taylor, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Mia, Virginia Madsen type choice. He was a top choice. Both Madsens up for the movie.
Also, kind of weirdly incestuous considering this. If they both would have been cast.
Has that ever happened?
Brother and sister playing like romantic partners potentially. I don't
outside of like a weird like porn.
Well, I mean, like something 6 feet under. There was sort of the fear that two. Oh no, I guess there weren't like brother and sister. And no, you were asking an entirely different question. Never mind.
Yeah.
I don't know. Not that I can think of. When did John and Joan Cusack? Ever.
I'm finding a list of times that a pair of actors have simultaneously played couples and siblings.
Oh God, that is
which is not nearly as interesting. I'm also finding a list of actors who played siblings on shows and then dated in real life. So yeah, I think it's too weird. I think people would be like, it would make everyone involved, including the audience, uncomfortable. So I think no one would do that.
Marissa
Tomei, Patricia Arquette. This is again Mia, Alfre Woodard, Jennifer Beals, Pam Grier, Phoebe Cates, Bridget Fonda, Lucia Wright. Again, it's a lot of the same. Anglia Bassett. The typos are insane. Anglia Bassett.
Anglia Bassett. Also, Deborah Winger. That is so weird.
Robin Wright, Meg Tilly, Cinda Williams, Jules. Yeah. We already mentioned Larry Fishburne. Turned down partially due to the heroin issue. Sam Jackson, Eddie Murphy. Can you imagine?
Wow. I mean, you know what? He turned out to be a fairly good dramatic actor.
Yeah.
I would not like be opposed to him like being in this movie. I mean, Sam Jackson is so perfect, but I can definitely see a scenario where Eddie Murphy is cast and he does a great job. He's a good actor.
What was Eddie Murphy in 1994? What would he have been doing?
I don't know. Beverly Hills Cop 3.
So he's in a slump. He's in a slump right now.
Metro.
Right, because Boomerang was... Boomerang was not a bomb. Boomerang did well. I take that back. But Vampire
has he
Brooklyn,
ever actually slumped? Like critically maybe, but I feel like all of his movies until recently have made
He
money.
has slump periods. I mean, The
Like
Adventures
creatively,
of Pluto Nash,
of course.
The Adventures of Pluto Nash and The Haunted Mansion come out like, well, Daddy Daycare was a hit, but I don't.
Yeah.
And then, of course, he has Shrek 2 in that period. I guess there's no period where he has...
Like, he wasn't in a Travolta
Tower Heist
slump.
and 1,000 Words. Shrek
Yeah, I think,
Forever
like,
After.
past, like, Norbit, he's definitely had mostly bombs. But I'm saying in the 90s... Also, I was entirely right. Beverly Hills Cop 3 was 94. But, like, he had, like, I think critical bombs probably, but not box office bombs, I would imagine.
Beverly Hills Cop 3 was a bomb, both critically and commercially.
Was it really? I assumed it still did pretty well.
I mean,
I've never seen it.
On a $70 million budget, it only made 120. So I doubt it broke even.
Oh, well. All right. I take it all back. He should have been in this movie.
The reviews were scathing. 10% on Rotten Tomatoes. The following year, he made one of Wes Craven's worst bombs, Vampire in Brooklyn. You know, Vampire in Brooklyn might have broke even. It was made $35 million on a $14 million budget, but the critical reception was bad. I have never seen it. Maybe I'll give that one a try.
Yeah, I've never seen it either.
But anyway, Charles Dutton. Here we had the weird thing. Unknown if necessary, no rappers.
Yeah, how should we think of that? Is it because...
do we want to touch that? I don't know.
I guess not. Yeah, I'm kind of curious.
But it's like...
Because I feel like in the majority of this list, we can actually say, like, there's a good amount of diversity in terms of the people that he's considering for roles.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm hesitant to say that this is because racism. I'm kind of curious why no rappers.
I think it's well, this beyond Tarantino. I think there was the treatment of rap in white America in the 90s. Like, it was really only viewed. There was really kind of like the fun novelty dance rap, old school hip hop, and then transition in the 90s. We just have gangster rap. And there was a real fear of rap as well as kind of a, what's the word I'm looking for? Like putting it down, disparaging it, just a disrespect towards the art form that obviously had deep racial undertones. But at the same time, this was around the time that rappers started to, because they were big hip celebrities, started getting cast. But like, Tupac Shakur
was an actor.
He was getting good notices in like serious movies. So like, that's the main one I would think of at the time. But here's an interesting fact. I'm on Tupac's Wikipedia right now. He was rumored before he died that he was being considered for a role in The Force Awakens. They were planning that movie way ahead. Phantom Menace, a movie that obviously came out.
Oh God.
3 years after he died, but had been in planning stages for a while. Do you know what role he was considered for?
Well, I have a joke answer that I don't want to say, and then I don't know.
No, he was. It's rumored that George Lucas was considering him for the role of Mace Windu, which of course was played by Samuel L. Jackson.
Well, there you go. Maybe Sam Jackson killed Tupac. We uncovered something here.
Butch the Boxer. We have no Bruce Willis. He was not considered yet. He was, I think, too big a star for this. Apparently, Bruce Willis had to take a huge pay cut for this role, but obviously it worked out for him. He wrote the role for Matt Dillon, which makes sense.
I can see him doing a good job too.
Johnny Depp, 1994 Johnny Depp. I don't know. Well, what year's Donnie Brasco? Is that 95?
I think it's around the same time, but still, he would have been too young.
Too young, too pretty.
Yeah, too young, too pretty. I mean, Nick Cage, the same. I guess, yeah, I feel like Nick Cage would be too young for that role. And maybe even Sean Penn. Yeah, I think what I like about Bruce Willis is the kind of more, there's a washed up energy there that I feel like would not have been present for some of these actors.
He is perfect for that role. Matt Dillon, I can absolutely see doing it. Sean Penn, yeah, I guess 90 Sean Penn. Nick Cage, I can see doing it. Can you imagine like 90s Nick Cage like flipping out on Fabienne? Like it's just a different character. It's a weirder character. But yeah, Bruce Willis is perfect for that role.
I mean, this is Nick Cage from Raising Arizona, or like, you know, this list is what probably from, I don't know,
bulked up
92 probably, or yeah, I find
93. He was writing the script in 93. I think this is all 93.
Okay, so 93. I guess it's slightly later, but
or early 94 because it was released on Christmas 94, but then obviously it had already done Cannes.
Hold on. No. It was released in September. That's why we're talking about it in October. It was not released on Christmas.
I'm sorry. I just recently I was watching the trailer for Jackie Brown, and that famously has the tagline, "This Christmas, Santa's got a brand new bag." Yes, so that's why, yes, you're right. Obviously, Pulp Fiction came out now.
I think it came out in limited release in end of September and kind of went wide around now, which is why we're talking about it. But yes.
Is there anything else? We don't have to read the rest of this list. Julie Delpy as Fabienne. She would go on to be
that would have been better.
Well, the problem isn't the performance. I think the scenes just aren't. It comes off of all the Mia stuff, which is so good, and it just goes on too long. Julie Delpy did go on to do Killing Zoe, Roger Avery's movie.
Yeah.
The Wolf, written for Harvey Keitel, but also considered Warren Beatty. I like that. Al Pacino.
That would have been good. Danny DeVito would have been amazing.
I think Danny DeVito, the producer of the movie, I think that would have been very funny. I think he would have been great.
Yeah.
I think if you do Danny DeVito, I think instead you give it more of he's not the weirdly suave debonair element that Wolf has, which is partly his outfit, which is because he's coming from a fancy party. But I think if you do Danny DeVito, he's coming from is it a funeral?
It seemed like a funeral or like a post christening or something.
It has to be early in the morning because it's very clear that scene takes place before 9:30 a.m. But I think if you do Danny DeVito, you make him like he's just like the most like it's just like his character from Taxi. He's just like a gruff kind of like middle manager, blue collar guy who's just like, hey, we're trying to get this work done. Listen to me.
But I think he still needs to have the competence. The competence is the kind of the selling point of the Wolf.
100%. Yeah. I think it's just more of a kind of a gruff, I'm just doing my job confidence.
Yeah. I think that would work. Or
Alec
maybe
Baldwin
like his character in. Yeah, I mean, I guess this is post Glengarry Glen Ross. I wonder if that was. Because I can definitely see the same kind of delivery.
100%. Charles Dutton would have been great. For Coons, the role that went to Christopher Walken, he also considered a few actors who, I guess, it feels like some of them are too young, but I guess it's a flashback. Tommy Lee Jones makes sense. Sam Jackson.
But yeah, Sean Penn does not.
I do love that Samuel L. Jackson is basically considered for every single male role. Is he? I'm pretty sure he is. Everyone except for Pumpkin. and Vincent. He's considered for Lance.
He would have been a great
considered
Mia.
for Jules. He's not Butch, but he's considered for... Okay, so not all of them. But he is considered for the Wolf, for Coons, for Marcellus. He really wanted to work with Sam Jackson, and he was clearly right. He would go on to put him in every movie he's made since. Does he cameo in every... Is he a narrator in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? Or is that a different movie I'm thinking of?
He narrates in Inglourious Bastards. He does like the PSA about how flammable film is. And he's the organ player in Kill Bill.
Yeah.
Is he at any point in Death Proof? I don't know. Unless he's a voice on the radio.
Samuel L. Jackson was in talks to play the villain of the Bounty Law episode in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So that I don't remember him, but it didn't work out.
That's why that movie is worse than the others.
Marcellus, Ving Rhames, Sam Jackson, Ken Faree, which would have been fun. Then we have Sid Haig, who was apparently heavily considered. So we have a lot of like old school genre film actors. Ken Faree and Sid Haig. That's where he was thinking of going. Jim Brown, Carl Weathers, Tony Todd.
Who's that? I don't think I know him.
Tony Todd, Candyman.
Oh, I never saw that. I do like Delroy Lindo, though.
You know what, Veronica? I want you to watch the original Candyman. It's Halloween. That movie's so fucking good.
Have I seen it? I feel like I've seen scenes from it. I know this actor. I saw something with him very recently.
Was it a Final Destination movie?
No. Oh. What was it? Is he in Tremors? No. I don't know what it is, but I saw him in something recently and I was like, oh, I like this guy. But yeah, I don't remember what it is. This is not important.
Has Tony Todd, Ken Faree, and Keith David ever been in something together?
I don't know. That's
a
great question.
Incredibly deep-voiced black actors who have all been in incredibly classic horror movies. Like, have they ever... I feel like Keith David, Tony Todd... I want to know... I think that they're friends.
Okay. I hope so. I know where I saw him. I saw him in Homicide: Life on the Street that I'm still diligently watching. And he's good.
Cool. I've never watched. You're doing a full watch through of Homicide?
Yeah, I've never seen it either, but it's on Peacock now, and it's very, very good. For Peacock. Yeah, it holds up super well. I mean, it's kind of hard to say it holds up because I have no idea what it was perceived as initially. I think it was positive. But yeah, it still feels very, very good and does not feel old.
Speaking of holding up since the 90s, shall we give a grade to one Pulp Fiction?
All right. Sorry.
That's one for the visual YouTube viewers.
Sure.
Got a whole little dance.
I'm so excited. We're seeing a movie I like.
Slim twist contest trophy. Here's my final thought on this movie. That restaurant would go out of business so fucking fast. That's all I could think watching that scene. Okay, you have to have actors who do impressions. You have to have kind of a good mix whenever you're not only are they actors, they're also impersonators and servers. That's expensive. You're doing this full dance contest every night where you give out a big trophy. You're not giving out a trophy. You're giving out a $25 gift card so they come back to the restaurant. Jackrabbit Slims, no wonder it doesn't exist in any other movie because it went out of business.
I mean, are you familiar with the Stardust Diner in New York City? It is
where they're all singers.
They're all singers and dancers and servers.
Look,
that is essentially the same.
All I'm saying is there's a reason that the waiters at Rainforest Cafe aren't also zoologists.
Okay, but that is slightly different. I feel like, if anything, actors being waiters is a tried and true rite of passage. And I will go on the record saying, if a Jackrabbit Slims existed in my area, I would patronize it every week.
I'll say this. If there was a way to make that business profitable, we would have gotten a real Jackrabbit Slims in real life since the success of this movie. If fucking Bubba Gump Shrimp Company could still be a real chain restaurant that has lasted... Speaking the movie that beat Pulp Fiction for Best Picture, 1994's Forrest Gump. If we could get the Bubba Gump Shrimp Company for 30 years, we could have gotten a Jackrabbit Slims, but I think it just doesn't make financial sense. Anyway, that's the most important thing I have to say about Pulp Fiction.
They must have had an in with the trophy people, right? Maybe maybe this was just discarded trophies, or like a trophy someone never picked up, and then they Sharpied real quick something different on it, like winner of dance contest.
There is a bar in Florida that goes by the name Jackrabbit Slims. They don't appear to do. It's named after the iconic movie Pulp Fiction. That's exactly what this place is. But then you look at the pictures, and it's just a boring sports bar.
There's also Jackrabbit Slims, a dance club in Northridge, Australia.
Okay.
But
look,
it has Pulp Fiction posters on the inside, but it doesn't look like anything like Jackrabbit Slims on the inside.
In case the proprietors of Jackrabbit Slims in St. Cloud, Florida, hear this episode, I'm not. This looks like a lovely sports bar that I would enjoy going to, and they have a bunch of drinks named. All their drinks are named after Tarantino characters. Fun.
Oh,
but this is not a 50s retro thing with actors. Here in LA, we do have like the Tim Burton bar and stuff. So like
and
that kind of stuff does exist now. The Star Wars bar,
Scum and Villainy,
which is better than the bar that's in the actual Disney theme park.
I disagree. As a Star Wars hater, I will stick up for that bar. It had a DJ.
Have you been to the non-official one?
Yeah, I've been to Scum and Villainy. It looks like...
I think that one's better.
No, it was so lame. It was like a bunch of plexiglass.
The bar in Disneyland in Galaxy's Edge sucks. You have to you're not allowed to stay for more than 45 minutes. Okay, I think we've had this conversation on the podcast before. If you're going to open a fucking Star Wars bar in your theme park, you know what it needs to have? Aliens.
Well, they had the robot DJ. That was very cute.
That's it? You can't give me...
I don't know. They might have had aliens. I wasn't paying attention. I like the robot DJ.
Zero aliens, because there's no room in there, because Galaxy's Edge as a whole is trash.
Wow. All right. Okay. So I give Pulp Fiction an A+.
I don't like giving anything an A+. I refuse to give anything perfect scores. But let's just say, if there was any movie I would break that rule for, it would be perhaps this movie. But I will just say A.
Wow. Well, at least we're still only off by half, which is our trademark.
All right. Now that we've talked about this shitty movie, Pulp Fiction, this overrated movie. There, did you win your gambling bet? This overrated movie, Pulp Fiction. Let's talk about a real hit from the 90s. What'd you think of Bram Stoker's Dracula?
Oh, I thought it was very fun. So in previous episode, if you've been listening, I saw Megalopolis. Perfect film, and I was craving more Francis Ford Coppola chaos. And I heard that Dracula delivers. And it was super fun. I think visually it still is very good. I think a lot of the effects hold up for the most part. And there's a lot of very cool, just like a lot of very cool effects that happen. There's one where he turns into a bunch of rats and stuff. That was very cool. There's a lot of cool shadow play, especially in the beginning when Keanu goes to the castle. And then you kind of see the shadow of Dracula, and it's all just, I don't know, all of that stuff was so playful and very fun. But it felt like a bunch of different movies. Tonally, I think I really liked the movie Anthony Hopkins was in. He was very fun as Van Helsing with, for some reason, Russian accents. I don't know why. The accents in this movie are wild, and it's kind of maybe part of the charm. I mean, yeah, they're like Keanu is bizarre, and Winona is, I guess, okay. Not really, but better than Keanu, I guess. And yeah, Gary Oldman's accent is weird, even if it's maybe accurate. But yeah, so the melodrama parts, I mean, they were fine. They were expected, I guess. But the most fun I had with that movie is when it kind of goes wild visually or accently, I guess. And yeah, so I had a great time. What did you think upon rewatch?
I love that movie. I love all the tonal craziness. It's, it is like everything that didn't work for me in Megalopolis, I fucking love in Dracula. I think the final act, rewatching it again, loses a little energy. That the first act and second act have. Some of that is kind of like has to do with the book. Although I think like watching it now, it's crazy. Like that movie is really the first one that's like, what if Dracula like really was in love with Mina, which is not in the book.
It's not in the book, but apparently it is in some adaptations from the 70s, from what I read.
Oh, okay.
So this is not, yeah.
I started watching Blood for Dracula, also known as Andy Warhol's Dracula from the 70s with Udo Kier, but I have not yet finished it, so I cannot rate that one. So far, my opinion is, I bet if I saw this in the 70s when it came out, I would have thought it was so fucking funny. But the kind of central joke that Dracula needs virgins, but none of the women are virginal. It's just it's not as funny now as I'm sure it was very funny then. That movie also came out in the midst of all the Hammer Dracula movies, so it's just comedy ages. Other movies I saw one horror movie that I fucking loved. You know what? The last act also loses a little energy, but the first half is wonderful. The new Irish movie Oddity starts with the opening scene starts with a woman. She's fixing up this estate that she and her husband are going to live in. He works nights, so she's by herself. It's an isolated estate. She has to go get something from her car. She goes out to her car and she thinks she hears something. She's a little spooked, so she runs back inside. Then there is, she thinks she hears the doorknob turning. The door's locked, but there's a little grate, and she opens it up, and sure enough, there's a man there. And he's a spooky looking man. And he says, I need you to come outside. And she's like, what? No, I'm not coming outside. He's like, no. I saw you. I was watching your house. You went out to the car, and while you went out to the car, someone snuck in the house. There's someone in there with you. You need to come outside with me. And so the setup is, does she trust him or not? And it's such a just perfect campfire story set up. Then the rest of the movie is a lot of fun. Great double performance as twin sisters by the female lead, who's let me say the name. instead of just saying she's good. The actress's name is Carolyn Bracken. It's just a treat of a spooky, old-fashioned ghost story. Very fun.
Nice.
I saw Tales from the Crypt Demon Knight. I don't know why I've never seen that before. You know, it's broken record. First half's a lot of fun. Second half's a little boring. But hey, Billy Zane's having a great time. And that is just a hell of a cast of character actors. Any movie that gets me Thomas Hayden Church, Billy Zane, and C.H. Pounder, yes, please. But fine. The movie's fine. Oddity's better. In a Violent Nature. So it's October. I've been watching a lot of horror movies. In a Violent Nature is that movie came out this year. That is the movie that's basically... It is, what if we filmed a Friday the 13th movie in the style of Gus Van Sant's Elephant, the school shooting movie? Cool. So it's just like a no score, just following the killer as he walks around the woods. It's from the killer's perspective. And I remember when that movie was first in festivals and it was described to me, I was like, that sounds kind of boring. And I watched it and I was like, this is kind of boring. But it is visually beautiful. But part of that might just be growing up in a northeastern forest, like around a lot of forests, and loving camping. It looked beautiful. It was filmed in Ontario, Canada, in the forest. Yeah, it didn't all work for me. It's an interesting experiment, and there are times when filming a silly Friday the 13th movie from the perspective of the hulking, personality-free killer is actually kind of interesting, seeing all the things we don't normally see, but not played for laughs the way it is in the movie Vernon, the mockumentary from like 15 years ago, whose name I forget. That's pretty good. Vernon something.
I don't think I know it.
That's a movie with a mockumentary about a Michael Myers type killer training to be the next big serial killer. Got a cameo from Robert Englund playing the Dr. Loomis character. You know what? Let me look up the movie of that. What that is called? Behind the Mask: The Rise of Leslie Vernon. That movie, in its last third, shifts and kind of stops being being from the killer's perspective and becomes while still kind of silly, a straight horror movie when he turns, spoilers, but no shocker, he kind of turns on the camera crew and starts stalking them. This cute. Movie, In a Violent Nature, doesn't stick with its conceit enough. There are enough times where it leaves the killer and follows the teens. And I'm like, no. And in those cases, I'm like, well, why? Last night, I watched Friday the 13th Part 2 with a friend who'd never seen it. And that's such a fun movie. I'm stupid trash, but it's such a fun movie. And there are times in A Violent Nature where I'm like, this experiment really works. This is really interesting. And there are times where I'm like, well, if you're gonna stop doing the artsy conceit, just show me. Then I'd rather just watch Friday the 13th. So I definitely liked it much more than I thought I would. But yeah, it doesn't all hold together for me. So that's what I've seen so far. You've seen, outside of Dracula, I know you've seen the movie that I'm fucking dying to watch, but I've been waiting for it to open up at the Vista. Speaking of Tarantino, I'm of course talking about Sean Baker's Anora.
Yes, I've seen that. That movie is so good.
Oh, I'm so jealous.
Yeah, I'm not going to spoil it at all, obviously, aside to just say how well observed it is, to the point of like, so I did not grow up as a poor child in Florida or in the South, or I do not know anything about the trans experience in Los Angeles, but I am like an immigrant to the US from the former Soviet Union. And actually, Anora is from the country that I was born in, the plot-wise, or at least her family is. So it's so well observed to the extent that I know. of the experience of being kind of Soviet origin in New York City. And I don't think Sean Baker is from there. So it is kind of so impressive to me. And in retrospect, makes all of his other movies that I've seen the more impressive for him being able to capture like the essence of what it's like to be like that person, to have that experience. And yeah, it's really good. It's really funny. It's like, it's has more action than I think any other of his other movies have. A friend of ours from improv is in it in a surprising way that I didn't know going in.
Oh, is it Sebastian Connolly?
Yeah, he's in it and he's great.
I saw him posting that he was at the premiere.
Oh, nice. Yeah, so it was fun to see him.
I saw he's credited as like truck driver. Is it like, does he have a big role, or like is he in it, like, is he very like
he has
like,
a memorable
like, it's
scene.
Clearly him. Oh, yeah, that's so exciting.
It is clearly him, and he has like more to do than just saying hey or whatever. Like he is in a proper scene that moves the story forward. So that's very good. Yeah, it's wonderful. Maybe when you see it, we can talk about it in more detail. But definitely, probably movie of the year for me so far. Really, really good. I also, in my quest to kind of fill in my gaps in my horror education, I've seen Rosemary's Baby, which I've never seen before. Really enjoyed that.
So we want to talk about Roman Polanski again. Okay, great.
Yeah, without mentioning He Who Shall Not Be Named, I will say that it was very, very fun. I did not think it would be as funny as it was to me, which great. I thought it was great. And Mia Farrow is great. She looks beautiful. New York looks beautiful.
The devil looks beautiful.
The devil is gorgeous to behold. And then we watched Tremors at home, which was so fun. Have you ever seen it before? I've never seen it before, and it was really goofy and very, very, very fun.
I think it was last October, that I watched Tremors for the first time. And I think I said on this podcast, I was like, first off, how have I never watched this before? Like, I've always known it existed. But the moment it started, I'm like, oh, of course I'm going to love this. This is everything I like.
It was just, just like such fun characters, very good natured. Also, just on a monster perspective, the monsters made sense, which I feel like is like the logic of what they do and how they go about it. I feel like all of it was consistent. It had like a very good, sense of place and sense of danger, which I really enjoyed. And then I saw a little thriller, one calls Conclave, yesterday. Have you seen Conclave already?
I have not.
It's kind of crazy. The experience I saw it in a packed movie theater yesterday. And people were like hooting and hollering and rooting for the characters, like very engaged with the movie. And it was great.
What was the average age of the audience?
It seemed like young people. People were like snapping back and saying yes. And they weren't like my friends, just like random people who went to see a movie about the process of selecting a new pope.
That's a John Lithgow fan base, man. I mean, they're crazy.
That movie is super engaging. I went in because I do love a mystery, and I love the kind of the secrecy and ritual of like shit like the Catholic Church.
I feel like Stanley Tucci does have kind of like a young semi-ironic fan base of people who love him. So maybe like I feel like he's like a memed actor.
I will say that the spots when people did that was not when either of those two actors did something. So
Isabella Rossellini, is that who they were?
Yeah, like her scene, she has a very badass scene.
Okay.
But yeah, that movie is tight. It's very well done. It's beautiful to look at. It's just yeah, the composition of shots is always like very like black, red, and white. I don't know. It's very cool to look at. And then I think the thrust of the movie is kind of interesting. The ending, I don't want to spoil, but I think it's great and it's kind of bananas. There is like one plot point that I found to be very on the nose and kind of unnecessary. But otherwise, it was very competent and fun. Like, surprisingly, for, again, a movie about selecting the next pope.
This is funny. I've wanted to see Conclave, but it's very much not a movie that I was like, oh, I gotta rush out to see in the theaters. This felt like a movie like, oh, I absolutely could watch this at home. Are you telling me that I need to find like the most packed screening of Conclave?
I would try to. I would also solely to confirm whether it was a weird one-off thing that happened to me in New York City or whether it is kind of a phenomenon now.
I love the idea. This I'm now picturing this is like the Alamo when they would do like rowdy screenings for like Hustlers or Cats, and they've got specialty drinks. Was this a rowdy screening of Conclave?
Yeah, I'm not okay. I don't want to oversell it. It wasn't rowdy, but the people made the type of reactions or had the same vocal reactions that you would have from a rap
people
audience.
Snapping?
Yeah, like there was a lot of like this, like someone was like, yes. And then like I think that was one group of people, but everyone else, like the sort of, you could feel the audience going along with the movie on that ride in a way that, again, I would not expect for a movie of that type. And also, again, John, you probably should see it on a big screen because it looks beautiful. And the sound design is great. I think it looks amazing on the big screen. I'm sure it would look fine on a TV, but it is definitely a cinematic movie. It's not kind of a stage drama. It's a bit of a thriller.
All right. I'll be honest. I'm upset that I went to see The Substance in a matinee with only like 3 other people in the theater. Because have you seen it yet?
Not yet. Might go see it next week. I keep putting it off.
While I mean, we talked about it in the last episode. I liked and respected the movie. I didn't love it. I thought it dragged a little. But that movie is clearly hitting a chord. And I wonder if I saw it with a big, loud audience, if I had felt if I would have felt differently. I mean, there are huge, like, gross out sequences that are designed like for audible audience reactions, and like as much as I can appreciate them intellectually when I'm seeing it in a silent theater, actually feeding off the energy of the audience. That's why, like, movie theaters can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Veronica, would you mind? I know you work for Netflix. Do you think you could pass along a little message to your bosses that, like,
I'm sure they would love it.
I think they should release their movies in theaters. I don't know. I know no one has said this to them before, but I actually think it's a good idea.
Yeah. Maybe it's feedback they haven't received yet. Maybe everything will change.
Ryan Johnson, like Daniel Craig mystery movies, like I feel like those would be good in theaters.
No, there's no way something like that would be good in a theater. There's no precedent for it.
No one wants it, and certainly no one's asking for it. So they're right. They're right. Fuck the theatrical experience.
I will say, to be pedantic for a second, they do an obligatory weekly release of most of their Oscar contenders, I suppose. So you can go to the newly renovated Egyptian Theater, which, by the way, is beautiful, and watch some of them.
Okay.
Like Amelia Perez.
I'm sure I will be going to see The Electric State and all the wonderful movies by the Russo brothers. I will be going to catch them all. The Gray Man. Will there be an anniversary screening of Red Notice? Because I
hear it's very popular.
Many times. It is the most popular movie.
It probably already sold out, John. So like The fans have been clamoring.
We're basically just stealing another podcast joke. All right. Did you see anything else?
No, that was it.
Well, all right.
Except for all those homicide episodes. Oh, you know what I saw that is not a movie, but is very, very beautiful and cinematic?
A sunset?
Oh, yeah, every night. The show Disclaimer on Apple TV.
Oh, I haven't seen that yet. That's the
oh my
Cuarón
God
show?
Yeah, it's the Alfonso Cuarón, Cate Blanchett, Kevin Kline show, who I have not seen in anything for a while, so that was very cool.
He and Phoebe Cates are just having a wonderful life together.
Aw. It is, you know how there's a famous YouTube channel, but also the phrase every frame a painting.
Yeah.
Like that is, he used two cinematographers to do this. Like one is the cinematographer from The Revenant. Now I need to find out their names. I forget their names. Emmanuel Labicki.
Yeah.
And I forget the other one. Oh, come on, why did I? Anyway, it's so beautiful to look at. Like every shot is the most beautiful version of that shot that you could have done. The story is pretty cheesy. Like it's not an amazing, great story, but it looks amazing, and I can't wait for Kate to do some shit because I think it's coming. But yeah, I would recommend. The only downside I will say is that it looks like an Apple product. Like, I don't know if you've watched shows on Apple
TV, so I haven't seen enough to know what the house look is.
Yeah, but the fact that it kind of has one is kind of a bummer to me. And maybe it's because it is optimized for the Vision Pro or some shit. I don't know.
Yeah, that's probably what it is. I'm sure.
It almost feels like it has a very similar like Instagram filter on everything. I don't know. This one looks, as I said, looks beautiful, but it also, I can't help but notice how the colors are slightly muted, like in a way that every other Apple show has them. So yeah. Anyway, Slow Horse is very good. If you do end up seeing Apple TV
My
shows.
parents love Slow Horses. That's all
it's
they
so
talk
good.
about.
Yeah.
Did we do a blue and red light in our backgrounds to celebrate the election?
Oh gosh. I don't know if I want to celebrate mine with a red light.
Yeah, Veronica is representing the Republican Party led by her hero, Donald Trump.
Oh, God. I don't want anyone to ever misconstrue that.
A coin flip. Do you think by our next episode will we know the results of the election? That's my segue into what are we watching for our next episode.
I think we would likely know. It might be, and maybe that's the best case scenario, that one certain side will not accept the results of the election.
Isn't that great that our best case scenario is that there's massive political violence because they don't accept a loss?
Yeah. It's interesting.
Will we be going to the theaters in 2 weeks?
Yeah, or will we all be barricading in our own house if we have houses that have not been set on fire? Speaking of, on November 8th, which I guess would be the next weekend, we would be talking. We might be talking about Heretic, the Hugh Grant thriller. That looks fun.
I hope. That looks so fun.
There's also Small Things Like These. A Cillian Murphy.
You could continue your Catholic Church screening.
Oh, but is that about how the Catholic Church
that's
did
about
some
the Irish
shit?
The laundries.
Oh God.
Asylums. Yeah, it's gonna be a cheerful one.
I I recently saw The Woman in the Wall, which was about also the laundry stuff. I think the laundry is having a moment, which is pretty sad. There's something called Bird with Barry Cogan is in it, so that's cool. Or Coogan? How do you pronounce his name? Did we ever settle on that?
Sure.
It's the new Andrea Arnold movie that I think is getting a lot of good notices, but I doubt would be number one. And it stars my favorite Franz Rogowski. Do you know him?
I don't think I do.
He has a cleft palate and is very sexy. He's German. Yeah, he did all of those.
What's his name?
Franz Rogowski. Last year he did that Ira Sachs movie, Passages.
Passages?
Yeah,
okay.
But he also did a bunch of movies with this German director called Christian Petzold. He did like Transit and Phoenix. Is he in Phoenix actually? Yeah, he is.
I have not seen any of these, I'm afraid.
But yeah, he is. He's really good. And that guy is a very interesting director. If you ever are interested in feeling things. Let's see. There's something called Weekend in Taipei, starring Luke Evans.
What is coming out the week before? Could there be a holdover?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. Oh, God. It's Here, the very weird looking Tom Hanks.
The reviews have not been kind.
Oh, they're out already? I haven't seen.
I saw a rundown this morning of reviews.
Oof.
I believe it has a 30% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh, boy. I mean, I will say, seeing the trailer, I was like, I hope this is good, because I'm kind of... Yeah. But,
look, Robert Zemeckis, it's one of those filmmakers who has made some of my most favorite movies of all time, and then just a whole bunch of movies that I have absolutely no interest in seeing. I want to see Your Monster. That's not going to be number one. But I would like to see it.
There's Blitz, the Alexander McQueen movie. Is it Alexander? No, what's his name? Steve McQueen.
Steve McQueen. Okay, it looks like we have a good chance of seeing Heretic, which I'm very excited for.
A Real Pain, which I really want to see, the Kieran Culkin, Jesse Eisenberg.
Oh, I'd also like to see that, but
I doubt that would be. Yeah, I think it's most likely will be Heretic unless Here is an insane hit for some reason. Because people want to see.
I feel like it's been a while since. When was the last movie we've done on this episode that that I would have seen normally? Out of the new ones.
Oh, that's a great question. Not Joker.
No, I don't think I count that one. Let's see.
Do we end up doing an episode about Trap? I enjoyed
Twisters.
Trap.
I would have seen Twisters anyway, but God. Kingdom of Planet of the Apes, I would have seen.
For me, it's Civil War, probably.
Civil War.
And Dune, Dune. Yeah.
There's been some good stuff.
I mean, to be honest, before I saw Argyle, I wanted to see Argyle.
We both loved Argyle.
I mean, yes.
All right. Let's call it there. So probably we'll see you and Mr. Hugh Grant in a couple of weeks. Until then, enjoy the absolute horror that is Halloween and a presidential election. Let's hope the coin flip that decides whether we fall into authoritarianism lands on the right side. We'll see.
But not actually the right side, the left side.
Oh yeah, please. No. I mean, it's our. Let's hope things stay mediocre and don't get worse.
Yay! Toot toot.
And people wonder why folks aren't super energized about the election.
I don't know. I feel kind of. I mean, yeah, I would feel energized to avert fascism.
Yes. Yeah.
That seems like the energizing cause to me, but who's to say? Anyway, before we get too political, toot toot to you. And
toot toot to you.
Bye bye. Dun, 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 dun.
This is me walking to the polling place to do my early voting today.
Jungle
That's actually not true.
boogie.
I prefer to vote on election day. I
Jungle
like the
boogie.
tradition of it. Bye.
Bye.